March 23rd, 2020. Okay, so gosh, I had employment very early in life. They back then it was pretty easy to go around the little town of Victorville and pick up some kind of work, and probably was making some money as young as 7 or 8 years old. One of the first things that probably all three of us boys did at one time or the other, the Bob's Market, just a few blocks away from us, when we were living out there on Dos Palmas or Grovilla Road. um, so we would, like most people then, knew there was value in collecting your soda pop bottles and returning them for recycling. And we had a convenience store, a little local small store there, just a few blocks from us, that we would return our bottles to. And then it works out that, hey, he said, look, if you would arrange the bottles back there, I'll pay you for your bottles, but arrange all the bottles that are left back there according to make, Pepsi, Coke, root beer, whatever, and stack them neatly, that we would be paid for that. So I know that probably all three of us boys, Neil, Larry, and me, Mike, did that at some time or the other for the Little Bob's Market. And then once I'm getting up a little bit older, I can remember me and Ricky Williamson. I don't know how we got this, but one of the summers we were, wanting to make some money to have some money, and he landed this job for us that was after school. I think we just did it once a week, and we would go and we would move these irrigation pipes, and so it was this alfalfa field, I think, and gosh, the pipes would be all connected together, and it would just be this big one long row of pipes, if I remember, and we'd have to unclamp them, move them section by section. Each section was like maybe 20 feet, and pretty tough for two boys that were, maybe we might have only been 10 or 12 years old, to move and carry those so many feet to a new location, hook them all back up together, and then at some point the whoever owned the alfalfa farm there would hook up the water and spray that new section of land for growing their alfalfa. And we were paid some amount of that, and it was probably pretty pitiful because we didn't do it for too long. We go, man, this is a lot of hard work, and it really doesn't seem worth it, and we'll just bum money off our parents. So yeah, that's part of learning about work. It's got to be worth your while. So I guess the next real job of where you're actually getting a legitimate pay on the payroll, you're working with the company, kind of deal. I'm in probably my senior year, living in Riverside, going to school in Corona, and no. Let me think. Let me think. Where was that car wash? I think this was in San Bernardino. No, that wouldn't work, right? Okay, but there was a car wash. I think it was there in Riverside. Maybe Sue would help me with that, probably so. At any rate, I got hired on. I just dropped by and said, "Hey, you need any help?" And it's one of the car washes where, yeah, the car gets pulled through this section that puts on water and soap and all of that, but we've got this crew that does all the wipe down and vacuuming and interior cleaning and all. And so they put me on interior windows. And my job would be to crawl in the car and with my cleaning equipment and just wipe all the interior windows clean and clean the steering wheel and armrests and stuff. And important part of the whole job was that while I'm cleaning, inspecting under seats, getting trash out and stuff like that, if we came upon a gun, we would yell gun. Everybody would move away from the car. The owner would be brought out, and the owner of the car wash come out. They'd talk and don't ever bring this back again. Blah blah blah. We got kids coming in that they don't need to be near a loaded gun. And that went on for a while, and money was okay, but at some point I probably needed to get a real job. So um, both of my brothers, uh, I think Neil first and then Larry, got involved with respiratory therapy, working in hospitals. So of course, you have to go through some training. There was kind of like this shorter program, then a longer program. You'd become either a certified respiratory therapist or a registered respiratory therapist. Smaller money or bigger money, take your pick. So I wanted the quicker way in, so I became and went to the schooling to become a certified respiratory therapist, and worked at a county hospital there in San Bernardino, and at St. Bernardine's Catholic Hospital there in San Bernardino. Um, I'll come back later and talk about the whole schooling experience. There were some interesting things that went on there, and then talk a little bit more about my experiences as a respiratory therapist, not only in the state of California, but Houston and Mena, Arkansas. Let's see. Okay, I jumped to the respiratory therapy. There was one other place I worked for a short time. My mama was working at the place. It was called the Screw Shop. What the heck? Well, what it was a manufacturing facility. They had milling machines. They would make screws and bolts and nuts and all that kind of stuff. And so she was working like front office type stuff. And I guess they needed somebody to do a particular job there. And I went on down, interviewed, and I was of age. And they said, yeah. They took me into the back room. They said, see this row of boxes on this wall here? It was a whole wall that was covered with boxes were about yay, yay. And they said they took out one of the little pieces from a box, and there'd be like a couple hundred of those in a box. And it was just this beautiful piece of, looked like an aluminum, had a little slot. It was hollow. It was like a short tube looking kind of like a something for a crescent wrench, the 15 millimeter part with but this was just a smooth finish. Had a little slot in it. It was kind of interesting looking. And they said, see this little thing right here? And he says, that doesn't belong there. That's a burr. That burr needs to come off. And the way that'll be done is he took me over to this drill press, and they had it's kind of a drill kind of looking thing that would, of course it's spinning, and you just got to run it down through that slot, the center hole of that. You lock it in. That's one done. Grab another one, lock it in, do it again. And so you got to be careful. I've seen guys that have kind of drilled their thumb a little bit. You got to make sure that you're clear before you. So he watched me do a few of them. He says, "Okay, you're on the go. You're on your own." And so I worked like crazy. I just got really proficient at it. Never injured myself, and I finished that wall. And I can't remember how long it took. And I said, "Well, so what's next?" And he said, "Well, that's it. That's all we needed before." And I wouldn't have worked so hard and so fast if I'd known. I was just working myself out of a job. So that's live and learn. But uh, enjoyed it, and that then after that, I go, I need to really find something that can be kind of like a career, and that was the respiratory therapy. And I, pursued the education and started working. And man, I've got a lot of wonderful stories from my respiratory therapy experience. Some of them horrid, some of them amusing. and that'll be for another several episodes. Um, so yeah. Also, while I was uh, a respiratory therapist, I discovered this new sport that had just come on the scene of hang gliding. Uh, it was a popular mechanics magazine that I saw, and they had on the front cover, or maybe it was a centerfold type picture. It was this guy that was obviously suspended in the air, and he's hanging from this triangular shaped um, device they called a hang glider. And just from looking at a still picture, I had no idea how did he get up there, how did he get down, and what was all this about. And so I started doing some digging around to see if anybody was offering these devices, the hang glider. And I did locate a couple of resources, and one gentleman says, "Yeah, this is Free Flight Systems out of Silmar, California." I was in San Bernardino. That's probably just an hour drive, and I was wanting to come on down. He says, "I tell you what, this was Rico Blair was his name." He says, "You round up 12 other individuals that would be possibly interested in learning how to fly, because these are flying machines." He says, "You run off the hill and you will be flying and you can control this aircraft." I said, "Okay, uh, I'll round up some guys and uh, you come on up and we're all going to," and I had to find a suitable hill. He described kind of a small hill, maybe, 15 to 25 feet tall, gradual slope that you could safely feel comfortable kind of running down. But with the glider, it'll be even easier because it's going to lift you off the ground. So I'm getting excited. Rico shows up. He's probably in his late 50s or 60s, and looks to be very good shape, very clean cut individual. And we're all a bunch of ragged hippies that I had rounded up, crazy enough to think, yeah, let's go. They None of them knew what we were getting into, but we're going to go jump off the hill and fly. And so he set up a couple training gliders, and he did a couple little short flights off the little training hill, showing us how it's done. And then we all would, hook into the harness, hook into the glider, and take a shot at it ourselves. And some of the guys were just piling in. It was mostly comical. It was just like a comedy routine. And uh, my wife Sue, she had come out. She wanted to see this, and um, I ran off, did the push out like thing you're supposed to do, and boom, I'm off the ground. I'm flying. I keep it going straight. The ground is coming up at the bottom, and I push out. I land on my feet, and I was the best one out there. And I took several more flights, and I was just a natural, as he said. And I think there's only one or two of the others that of that day that continued on, and actually purchased a glider and became a pilot out in that area. And so I order a glider, and oh, this phone, sorry, I don't know who that is. Okay, so yeah, that became a thing for me for quite a while, and trying to think here. So yeah, I became a hang gliding instructor immediately. He provided me with a little bit of equipment. He I you know I was going to buy myself a glider, uh, buy another glider that would serve as a training glider. He might have even provided me one for temporarily. Rounded up some helmets and gloves, and man, I started running people off the hill, training lots of people there. in San Bernardino, was the first instructor in San Bernardino, which San Bernardino now, with the flying community of hang gliding and paragliding, it's one of the go-to places, in the country. Uh, Several launch sites, Crestline, Pine Flats, the lower mountains, and eventually the sport became very sophisticated. The flying machines uh, from the original design are now high performance cross country machines, and it's been a sport that I've loved and will continue to pursue the rest of my life, more than likely. Um, so yeah, the hang gliding was there. I got a little bit strung off from the task at hand, and that is all the various employments that I've had. So I was doing that while I was a respiratory therapist, and at some point Neil had moved out to Houston, and I think me and Sue were just getting kind of restless. There'll be some other stories related to that, and we said we're just going to get out of here. Neil said that there would be lots of job opportunities in respiratory therapy out there in Houston, and he was starting up a business where it would be like serving conventions that he also wanted, some assistance with. So we did a little bit of this convent. We moved out there, did a little, and there'll be some story just behind that. That was quite a venture, and the things that led up to that. Um, so the conventions was we were just providing a method for a convention to track and then provide resource information back to somebody that was wanting information from a specific vendor. And it was pretty clunky. We were basically at that time, since the computers were just not up to speed for what we would later be able to turn to. Basically, we had all these credit card printing, machines where you bring in your uh, credit card, but we would make up our own little plastic cards. Somebody would check in as a participant. Hey, let me call you back in a little bit, Alan. Uh, okay, that was Alan. That's my carpenter. They're working on my bathroom's remodel. Um, and it was real clunky. So we'd take, you know, 50 to 100 of these little slider credit card stamping machines. Every participant, we had a machine that would stamp out their own personal card, have their name and their address on it, what business they were in, and then if they saw something they wanted information from this business or some further contact, that company they had one of our machines and they'd zip the card, and then at the end we'd collect all that information from those people, compile it, send it to them, and here was your list of uh, people that was inquiring information. It was I think I went to two conventions doing that, and then we kind of closed up shop on that. And I'd started working in respiratory therapy again there in Houston, and that again will be another extraordinary tale. Our life in Houston. We were there a very short time. I worked at a horrid hospital, and full of horror stories you will not believe. Um, well, kind of skipped something here. See, I was working at St. Bernardine's there and teaching the hang gliding and stuff, and selling hang gliders. And I just got really sick and tired of what was going on at the hospital. Got frustrated with some things, and I just one day, I mean, this was bad. I shouldn't have done it, but I just got up and left middle of the shift. Let everybody, they can pick up the rest of the work. I'm done. I'm out of here. And it had a lot to do with it, just the idiot that was in the administration of that respiratory therapy department. And in fact, I'm sitting there at work at the hospital, on my lunch break, and I pick up the paper, classifieds, and I'm just reading through them, and I see this thing that says, "Hey, looking for some wild and crazy guys that would like to make lots of money. Call this number." So I quit, walked off the job. I gave that number a call, went down and met with them. And the next day, I was selling frozen steaks door to door with my respiratory therapy degree in my pocket. And I did that for a good while. It was good money. The model was I would uh, not go to homes. They said, you don't go to homes, you go to businesses, you go to beauty salons, banks, any place where there's lots of ladies working. And you're a good looking man. He says, you're going to do well selling frozen steaks. And indeed, it was easy. I'd go into a bank. You walk into a bank, and I'd lay out my frozen steaks there in front of one of the tellers, and all the girls, what's going on? Oh, look at those! Those are beautiful. If one of them bought, they all bought, and I just bring in the whole chest and sell all the steaks. Same thing with beauty salons and the like. So that was fun, but the old hard sell, it got a little old, and eventually I had to do something else. Uh, let's see. Oh, so we moved to Mena finally. Neil had moved from Houston to Mena. We're chasing him. We finally get to Mena. Didn't line up any kind of job. I figured, hey, we'll just go up there and get a job. There was a hospital there. I go, I'm not going into respiratory therapy. I just left respiratory therapy again from Houston. And so the first job I heard about, they were needing some help uh, demolishing a big old two-story building. Used to be the Antler Motel in Mena, Arkansas. And so me and Sue show up to see if there's anything we can do. And they said, well, you've got a pickup truck. You could stack bricks. These bricks are going to have to be stacked. After the building was torn down, there were just bricks scattered everywhere. These little red bricks. And so you stack them on uh, uh, one of these pallets. It's got to be this many high, that dimension, and each one would sell for this amount of money, and I can't remember how much. And you'll get to keep that money. And so that sounded pretty good. So we're just kind of a cleanup crew. Get to some of the bricks needed to be cleaned up because there was still, the grout stuck to edges and stuff. So, yeah, my uh, this will be another big story. My wife was pregnant about 6 months, and so we're out there, we're stacking bricks with a 6 month pregnant woman, and so we get them all stacked on pallets, and then someone, they let it known that these bricks were available around the town, and um, people would come and want to buy the bricks, and gosh, well, now what would happen is we'd set a pallet in our trunk. There was not a forklift to do this. So we had stacked all of these just so that we could unstack them and restack them, and I could put two stacks in the back of my truck. But it was money. It probably wasn't close to being worth it as far as the time and the effort, but it led me to something. So we're making deliveries, be able to do a couple stacks and restacks and deliveries a day until most of the bricks are gone. And there's probably one or two other people even attempting to do the work that we were doing. Just had to get some gloves because it was tearing our hands up and all. And so one of the deliveries, this gentleman came and said, "You know where the airport's located?" Yes, yeah, I know where the airport's located. He says, he's going to need, I don't know if it was just two or maybe four stacks of bricks, whatever, delivered to the airport. And so he told me the address. I found the hangar. He told me where to unload them, and we did that. He paid me, and he says, "Come on in, have a look at our shop." And he had one of the nicer facilities there at the time there in Mena, at the airport. And best that I could tell, it looked like they were mainly repairing crashed aircraft because there were busted aircraft and they got them all in various different states of disrepair and repair, and a lot of metal work. It's all looks like entirely metal work going on, with working with aluminum and shooting rivets and that kind of stuff. And so I had uh, when I was in Houston, the stupid move to Houston was this: there was no hang gliding in Houston unless you powered your hang glider. So yeah, it really put a pinch on the hang gliding and my flying. But I did at that time find this group that was involved with ultralight aircraft, and they were selling the Quicksilver, which was a very popular uh, single wing, had the tail and rudder in the back, ran with a little Yamaha engine mounted on the rear, and a little tricycle landing gear. Was really one of the better ultralights back in the 80s there, the time that that we were doing that. So uh, I got involved with that, bought a Quicksilver, and ended up when we soon moved to Houston, I took that with me. So here I am selling some bricks to this aircraft guy, and I mentioned that I fly too. He said, "Oh, you're a pilot." I said, "Yeah, I fly ultralight aircraft." And he said, "Really? Man," he says, "I've always wanted to do that." I said, "I tell you what, how about if you've got a little extra space that I could park my ultralight, I'll teach you and show you how to fly that." And it turns out I actually even sold a couple more ultralight aircraft while I was there in Mina. And so there was this one time where, I've got mine. Fred has flown my airplane, and he just it really enjoyed it. It's so simple, and then I built up another one that was going to be sold for somebody there locally, and so we got to go up together. Him on one and me on the other, and because I have to test fly everything that I build, make sure it kind of tuned in properly and all. And we're up there just like doing these pretend dog fights and stuff. It was a ball. And eventually, I kept hanging around. I kept asking him, "Hey, man, have you got a place for me to work here? I can learn about anything." And he said, "No, just really not." But eventually, so I'd be out there. I'd do my little lunchtime flying, and then in the evening I'd come back and I'd I'd sweep the floors and put some tools away, and Fred go, you don't have to be doing this, Mike. And I said, no, I enjoyed it. You let me keep my glider here. He says, well, hell, he says, I'm just going to go ahead and hire you. You willing to come in and put in 8 to 10 hours a day? Yeah, I'm ready. So that was a good start for employment in Mena, Arkansas. Um, yeah, so part of the job with that was we'd go out, me and one of the other guys, and we'd tow a big old trailer and we'd go pick up a crashed airplane someplace. Uh, have to disassemble it, load it up on to a big old trailer, bring it back to the airport, and do whatever repairs on it. And I basically was the like the guy that was putting on the skins on the wings, shooting pop rivets and well, not pop rivets, but shooting rivets, and then occasionally doing some pop rivets, learning all the terminology. And yeah, it was an interesting skill to learn. And let's see, so yeah, that what had happened was I okay, I guess we had a baby. Yeah, we had a baby. Justin was born, and we were having a rough time economically, just with the pay that I was getting at the airport. And so I figured, you know what, let's just move back out to California a little while. I'll get a job as a respiratory therapist, make the good money and get it to enough money stored up to where we'll be able to make a move back to Mena because we had bought land right beside Neil there, and you know, start building. And because we were living in a basically a plywood box out there on the property. Um, that's another whole story that I'll get to sometime. And babies. Um, so went back to the same hospital that I had walked off the job in the middle of the day, and got hired back on because no longer was the evil director there, and some of the old guys that I went to school with were there running the place, and I'm going, yeah, I'm back, man. And I can't remember how long we were there, but long enough to start building up a nest egg again. We were, I think, mostly just living up with my mama in a room, so it was rent free there. And then one day I get a call from a gentleman from Arkansas. He says, "Are you Mike Kelsey?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "My name is Steve Schulte. I'm the director of the physical therapy department at the Mena Hospital in Arkansas." I said, "Okay, yeah." And he says, "I was told by someone that there was someone, you, Mike Kelsey, that was living in Mena, Arkansas, and that you are a certified respiratory therapist, and that you never bothered to come and get employment at the hospital." He said, "Why was that?" I said, "Well, I'd had a kind of like a bad experience as far as the way a hospital was run in Houston. I just had to leave that for a while, and that's why we moved to Arkansas. And I did anything I could there other than working in a hospital. I just didn't want to do it. I was just being truthful. But finances made us go back to Arkansas, where I knew I could easily land a well-paying job and get enough money that I'd be able to come back, maybe start building a home, and uh, that would be suitable to raise children in. And he says, "Well, would you be interested in coming back and serving as the director of respiratory therapy? We have lost our whole department, had to run them all off." And he says, "Currently, I'm as the director of physical therapy. I'm also trying to handle the the rest the respiratory therapy as well." He says, "This needs to be corrected. Can you come and help out? Your brother is vouching for you in a very big way." And I said, "Well, uh, what's the pay?" He told me. I said, "We're on our way." And it was pretty easy for us just to load up and head on back. And yeah, back to working respiratory therapy, director of respiratory therapy. That's the first time I've been in that position, and I really enjoyed it. Good facility. I had worked at so many different hospitals, and I'll have to attest to this. The Mena Hospital was the best place I ever worked. Now, I can tell you some stories of every hospital I've ever worked, but without a doubt, the Mena Hospital, good functioning hospital, and remains so to this day. So while I'm there working, this would be back, in the early 80s, and the thing called the internet came about. And my brother got, very involved with the internet even when he was still in California. And so he kind of had some things going on, and he said, "Man, what you need to do, Mike, is just on your spare time, here's these programs. You can design these web pages, and you know that provides a service to people locally, that could be restaurants or lodging facilities or whatever." they need these websites, and get on top of it and you'll be the king of Mina. And so I did pursue that, and really, was one of the early ones to be providing those kinds of services, not the dial-up service, or I was just providing, I design you a website, I put it on my server, and you pay me monthly or annually for the services. And that worked out really well. Additional income that I could just kind of do it on the spare time. And at also some point or the other, Justin had bought this slum apartment complex in Waldron, Arkansas at some point. And then he ends up, I mean, here he is, he's in the National Guard. There's all the signs that, yeah, we're going to be going to war. And he buys this stupid slum complex. And I mean, it was a wreck. And Waldron, it's a town that has its difficulties as far as lots of drugs and crime and stuff. Sorry to be talking you bad. You're getting better, but still. Uh, so I ended up having to take that over from him while he goes off to Iraq. Nice. Both him and Daniel. That'll be some more stories. Oh my God. Having two of my boys over in Iraq is just like no fun. So I become also webmaster, respiratory therapy director, slumlord. And of course, me and Neil, we had some building, construction experience, and I just started remodeling unit by unit, and still doing that to this day. It's a very slow process because some of it is, I go in, there's this place that's just totally wrecked. So tear out stuff, put in all new, paint it, flooring down, and next tenant comes in, can partially wreck it again. And but it gets better as time goes on, and I won't dwell on that too much. Really, not a whole lot of interesting stories out of that, except a lot of just work and frustration, and not a whole lot of money. Hoping someday I'll be able to sell it. Okay, well, these people keep hammering me on the phone. I'm going to call that quits for the day, and have a good one.